here at the London International Film Festival 2017 and I'm joined by the writer, director and producer from the documentary film The Checklist Effect. Welcome to London, it's been home for you and congratulations on your successful nomination.
Thank you so much.
For those that aren't aware of the story, give sort of an outline and synopsis of what it's about for everyone.
Sure, so it's a 45-minute documentary that explores the fact that 5 billion people all over the world do not have access to what's considered safe surgery, and what that looks like in 7 different countries, and the ways that it can be improved without necessarily, injecting more resources or money into something into the healthcare systems, but really just having more cooperation, more teamwork, and how a checklist can influence that.
Of course. So the idea, how did it develop from start to then finished? How did that?
Well, it really started with Sarah.
It really started with the Football World Cup.
Right, okay.
Because IFF, which is an NGO that I work for, whose work is very much around how you make surgery and anesthesia safer in countries where, essential operations like cesarean sections, trauma, like things that we show in the film, are not life-saving because the circumstances of that of a hospital care or resources or training are so challenging that something that should be saving a life often becomes dangerous. So that's the world that Lifebox is working in, and we had done a project around the World Cup. We had gotten in touch with Lauren, who herself had made a documentary series previously around like how football is kind of used by NGOs for different service delivery. We started talking, and before we knew it, Lauren had signed up to come with us to Uganda, which is one of the countries where Lifebox is very active, providing equipment and training. And I wasn't entirely aware that we were making a documentary when it began. I thought we were, from our perspective, it's extraordinary to be able to show these stories on camera. And Lauren is a cinematographer by training and has this extraordinary way of seeing the world behind a camera, and I thought we would get the chance to show some of our work that way, and it grew into a story that took us around the world.
I was going to say, obviously, one part of it being the 7 countries that you cover, and that was that the most challenging bit in terms of going from one place to the other, or?
I mean, I feel like that was easy compared to the editing process, but
That's what everyone's saying. That's the thing. I was having again when you obviously interview filmmakers and you go, oh, was it tough, like writing a script? No, I did it in 10 days. Oh, what about filming? Oh, we did it in 10 days. What about the editing? Oh, 4 months. Like, that's the bit there. So were you happy with the footage you got?
Oh yeah, definitely. And if anything, it was just, I wish I could have spent more time in some of the places, but I mean, everyone is under clock and pressure and scheduling restrictions and stuff, but we made the most of every single opportunity that we got.
So what was the 7 places that you covered?
So we show surgery in 7 places. There's 8 locations in the movie. So we start off in Guatemala. Actually, the opening sequence was shot in Mexico.
Right.
And then we show Guatemala, we show Haiti, we show the US, we show the UK, we show Moldova, Mongolia, and Uganda. So
it's a wide spread of continents, of course, which is...
We covered every continent,
You did,
right?
I was going to say, you've done. So you're obviously, and it's something which, again, you need to cover, because you can't be naive to it. You can't just go, I'm going to show this global thing, film in London.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. You need to add, relativity and cover it. And of course, in Haiti, it's going to be completely different to the UK, and then obviously adding it to Uganda and that. Were you shocked, or what country shocked you the most?
I think to say shocked is a kind of,
surprised you, perhaps?
I'd say Moldova surprised me the most. So I don't think a lot of people realize Moldova, it's right next to Romania.
Yeah.
It's actually the poorest country in Europe. And the people there are fascinating. I mean, the staff at the hospitals and the different doctors, they were awesome. They knew what they had to do.
Yeah.
The resources were super restricted. And they had this amazing culture of being able to understand when something was instituted to take direction with it.
Right, okay.
There wasn't any resistance or fight back or anything from hospitals, or there wasn't any debate over things, right?
Well, I think there was such recognition, of structure, and surgery is a systematic process, and what the checklist is, it's not just the name of the movie, it's actually a tool that was developed by the World Health Organization, modeled off the aviation industry about how you reduce risk in very risky scenarios. So obviously a plane in the air, quite risky. Opening up a body and rearranging it, also quite a risky undertaking. But an urgent one. I mean, that's why we're also filming in the UK and the US, was to show surgery is it's personal and it affects all of us. And that was the kind of the global component.
That's what I was going to say.
Every country
is global. It's like with a supermarket, for example. Everyone, no matter, unless obviously you are then in the third world, but that relationship which people have from all walks of life, rich or poor, you're going to use it. People are going to. My sister-in-law is an arrhythmia nurse. I don't have the massive link to the whole surgical side of it, but it's still. She'll just say, "Oh, today, every day, you can have people that's lives are threatened with things which, as you said, Sarah, aren't life-threatening surgeries. Yet it can." I've known people which went in for, I think, a shoulder operation, and they lost their life.
Yeah, we heard stories in the UK. Someone went in for the exact same surgery that I went in for and lost their life.
And that's scary, or are people naive? What?
I mean, I hope that this documentary raises the awareness of everyone, that everyone should be concerned when they go in for surgery.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that I feel like is overlooked, especially in America, as in, oh, okay, well, this happened, okay, I'll just have to go in for a procedure. And it's not a simple procedure. There's so much more to it. And people need to have that awareness, because if they don't, then it's just going to become a more and more dangerous thing with the way that people are living longer lives and the way that the population is growing and whatnot. And I thought it was so remarkable how in Moldova, the Ministry of Health said, okay, we're all going to try this checklist, and I want everyone to do it. And everyone did, and it completely changed their numbers. And they didn't have a change in resources, they didn't have a change in education necessarily, other than teaching the checklist.
Just implementing the checklist. So
they did have equipment from one of the things that Lifebox provides.
Sorry, well, that's part of the checklist.
Part of the checklist, sorry. Exactly. But so it's about culture, and how do this group of people in a room work together to do this very specific task. And surgery, you'd think it would be about the machines, and you'd think it would be about the drugs, and it is to a point, but actually it's how that team is working together. And Lifebox contributes one particular piece of equipment, which is called a pulse oximeter. It goes on the finger and it monitors the level of oxygen in your bloodstream.
Right.
And without one, you're effectively unsure. Is this an anaesthetized patient? Are they breathing? Are they alive? And there's more than 70,000 operating rooms around the world that don't have access to one.
Really?
Effectively meaning, hundreds of millions of lives that are at risk, but have no choice because these operations are necessary.
So you can, obviously surgery can be done without this machine, but it's not a good idea, because the point being is that it's your first sign of when your body starts to fail.
Yeah.
And that gives you about 3 minutes to try and recover and help and work on the person and the patient as to try and get them back to where they should be, right? Oh. Whereas you can take someone's pulse, but by the time you realize that their body's failing, it's too late. You've lost those 3 minutes. And so Lifebox, I think that what they did, and obviously what they do, is very important, and it was just so great collaborating with them on this project, because the goal was always to show the crisis of surgery now currently, and it was never to just make it about this piece of equipment that they donate. And I think that was as
a whole, and then it's obviously that's added onto it. Words in my head are thinking of naivety and ignorant. Are people ignorant to think, and perhaps even again myself thinking, I've not been in for any major surgery, but then also it's mainstream media and TV shows which, as far as I'm aware, actually represent the medical industry in the wrong way as well. And again, with my sister-in-law, where she's a nurse, she says she watches TV shows and goes, that's wrong.
Throws things at the TV.
Yeah, she goes, that's wrong. Even for the heartbeat, she goes, when they're displaying that is not how a heart, and that's her area of specialty. It's not how it would be, and it gets frustrated. But
when you talk about editing and then trying to get approval, the Lifebox trustees are primarily clinicians, so obviously every beep that we might be presenting out of place was this film is incredibly clinically accurate.
Right, because that's what it needs to be, because otherwise you're not doing your job, and you've not done the checklist of making a film.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there were times back on set in New York while I was working on this So I would work on other TV shows when I lived there. And so it's funny you mentioned that. There was one scene that I was working on a TV show, and someone wasn't wearing a mask in a surgery scene. And we were it was a difficult day. We were going longer than we were supposed to. People just wanted to rush it. So we got the wide shot, and then they wanted to move on to the close-ups. And under my breath, I said to the operator that I was sitting next to, I was like, I don't know, I think we should reshoot that again. And he was like, why? I'm like, well, he wasn't wearing a mask, and so like you're not going to be able to use that part of the shot or whatever. And so they did end up, they were ready to move on, and he was like, nope, actually our health specialist in the camera department mentioned, and the crazy thing is that they have doctors on set to refer
that's the thing
to.
you do. You often see where it's medical advisor.
Yeah, there is a medical advisor.
A medical advisor on set, and then all of a sudden they're missing obvious little things which actually are fundamental.
Yeah. But it's like a very dramatic space now. Actually, I'm sort of the light glaring at us just behind you is very reminiscent of operating theatre lights.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course, yeah.
Beautifully lit spaces, and something very dramatic is taking place within them. But equally, like, you know, one of the things we really wanted to show is that it's not just about the drama of the moment, and there are some very dramatic moments in the film, and that's, well, you should watch it.
Yeah.
But the goal was also to show the fact that surgery is deeply connected to the life that exists outside of the hospital as well. You know, you're not doing an operation just to prove that you can. I mean, the film ends at a wedding, you know, and it's actually to show that this extraordinary thing that we've been able to do, which is to return people's bodies to themselves, you know, to move, to dance, to fall in love. And
films here throughout the festival, they say, and I studied, like my studying degree is in films, they say there's only 7 sort of different types of films and stories that you go to, whether it's a love story, the underdog story, or just the appreciation of life, and whether it's appreciating life and nature and being outdoors, or appreciating how over the years, through hundreds of years, how self-medicine to then surgery to then actually, I can stitch myself here, I've got something in my body, to then internal injuries, to then where we're at now, where people can have brain surgery and all these most incredible, and people just take it for granted as well. I think the new era of society, as it were, teenagers now which live on their mobile phones looking for social media validation, yet they don't really appreciate what it takes. I mean, the discipline for surgeons as well, and as you say, it's the teamwork, isn't it? That's one of the most obviously important bits of it.
I mean, we had everything from emergency cesarean sections in a ger in a tent in rural Mongolia through to, you know, in a hospital in the UK where you have really the resources that you need to do the job. But there's this fundamental similarity to what they're doing. You know, the operation proceeds in the same way, the team needs to behave in the same way, and that's this amazing universality of surgery that. And it's why I think, you know, working with lifebooks, like, it's very niche. You don't kind of walk down the street thinking about needing an operation. Like, here's hoping you never will do. But statistically speaking, you will do.
Yeah, that's
it's 1 in 7 people, right?
No, I think it's the average American. It's like 8 operations in a lifetime.
Yeah, sorry. So I thought it was 7 operations. Yeah.
It's so surgery is sort of fundamental to healthcare. You know, and the World Health Organization is starting to take notice. Medical manufacturers are starting to take notice. But meanwhile, you know, what we're saying at Lifebooks is, you know, this is an essential component of healthcare that needs attention, that needs funding. It is a crisis, even though it's not being recognized. And working with Lauren, like, what it gave us the chance to do was not to make a commercial for our work. Like, we believe in what we're doing, and,
of course,
and kind of the equipment, the training that we provide. But actually, the story is so much bigger, and the ecosystem is complicated. And I think we got to show that, but we also got to make it personal. I mean, the story of there's a little boy in Haiti that Lauren, you know, was almost able to. You see his life change across the film. This operation, and you know, his mum walked across mountains for days to get into the hospital because, you know, because the way you love your family is universal as well. It doesn't matter from the UK or the hills of Haiti. Like, she was determined to get him the care that he needed.
You can't break that bond, obviously, of family and say, wherever it is, if they're living in the slums in somewhere or difficult conditions, to then living in a nice pad in London or sort of thing, it is universal. So going back to creating it, did you storyboard it, or how was that process from this is happening, this incredible opportunity is happening?
Yeah.
How did the sort of process go from there, and then when you started bringing people in and everything?
So in the pre-production conversations we had, Sarah had already had an idea of places that would be open to us going and meeting and talking with them, places that Lifebox had worked before. And so although I also started at the same time working for a hospital in Haiti called Hôpital Albert Schweitzer, really great institution that's been there for 60 years. And so they were on board with me to film while I was there. I lived in Haiti for 6 weeks, and made films for them, as well as captured the story of Kenneth that's in the Checklist Effect. And equally, Sarah was able to get us access into each of the countries, and with doctors that Lifebox really worked long with and were very trusted with.
Right, okay.
And then they, helped to make the patients comfortable to speak on camera. All the patients are listed as anonymous.
Right,
So
yeah, I was going to say, because there's got to be a lot of legalities and that side of things where you need to cover off, but then also they still want to be involved in sending the message as well, don't they?
Sharing their own story.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, it's hard to make a film that we wanted to make sure that we would be proud to show it in any of the countries where we had filmed as well. This wasn't about, look how terrible it is here. This is about these, anyone who is a healthcare professional probably could sit down, have a drink and see eye to eye regardless of where they're practicing, because they have the same priorities, the same extraordinary capacity to make a contribution. And we wanted to make sure in each of the locations, the voices that were being reflected were the voices of the partners that Lifebox works with, that the patients were able to be fully aware that they were telling their own stories and that they wanted to as well. I think we forget that giving people a voice. Global surgery is a really new field, and the conversations about it are only just beginning. And I think a lot of the people that we interviewed were really excited to be able to share their contribution.
No, of course, and obviously linked through football as well, which obviously is, everyone loves football. Well, not everyone, but I love football. And when you look and see, and everyone says, "Oh, it's a massive. Players get paid too much money." Yeah, they do. It's a global sport. It's a business. But then on the side of that, what gets promoted through football gives a massive reach, doesn't it? Is there any ideas in development whereby you can use football and like Lifebox together in some way, or?
Well, we got some great footage of there's a junior football team in Uganda who we filmed with, and it's amazing the parallels when you talk about teamwork. There's scenes in an airplane, there's scenes we had filmed in a restaurant. You actually see that when you're trying to do something as a team, the systematic approaches are often the same. I mean, in terms of Lifebox and football,
I would
we'd
love
love
it
to talk.
personally.
Football, I mean, I think anyone who's ever had surgery, all they want to do is talk about their operation. So I think we just need to find that footballer who's
Or any English club that wants to put Lifebox across their kit, I think.
Or certainly my dad would go nuts for Arsenal. So let's see what we can do.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, it's, as we've gone through, it's relevant to everyone.
Yeah.
People don't think about it, and have I thought about it? No, I haven't. But then when you're in that situation, all you're going to do is think about it.
Yeah.
And having access to settle nerves or want to make sure, I mean, as an everyday patient, if like then next week I was in a situation where I had to have surgery, do I have the right to go in and fully question the checklist as a...
Well, you should be asking. And it's mandatory in the UK.
Yeah.
You have it. I mean, I don't see why not. You're either paying for the services or you're signing away a consent saying you're allowing people to operate on you.
Yeah.
You have every right to ask, as an everyday patient, if they're doing it on you. A dead giveaway is obviously if they ask you your name more than once. So that's when that they're starting to do the checklist. If you're nervous and you forget and you're like, why do they keep asking me my name? Do they not know what they're doing? No, that's a good sign.
I mean, the checklist, the way it's really, it's like 19 steps that can be adapted for different hospitals, and it is these basic things. Is this the right patient? Did we count all the pieces that went, all the swabs and the gauze? Did we count them back out again?
Yeah.
Are we operating on the correct site? And it seems like these very fundamental things, but it's proven kind of regardless of geography or economic sort of region, to reduce complications and mortality by about 40%. So it is like literally a wonder drug on a piece of paper.
Yeah,
And
cool.
it's a lot more complicated than that because it's culture, and as the film shows, you're looking at very different worlds within.
Because like I say, they've all had different academic backgrounds, haven't they? Obviously, a doctor trained in the UK and the US, you would say, is then going to be completely different to Mongolia and Uganda.
Yes and no. I mean, the body is the body is the body. So actually, procedures for basic operations, they call them the bellwether procedures, these kind of like fundamental operations. I'm sure there are different techniques, but actually that's what's so incredible about surgery. And we would go around the world and we would see like how different these countries, the language and food and almost in every way. You'd step into an operating room
and all of a sudden it goes, it doesn't matter where you are, it's then going to be...
There's a certain familiarity that that what is about to happen has, there is a plan for it.
So the procedures globally are basically the same, but how the team comes together in it wasn't until the World Health Organization decided that there should be like a checklist that brings that together. No, it's okay, and I think that's kind of what got overlooked all these years, and that's why medicine kept going and it kept sustaining itself through these years. But then it got to the point where it became more dangerous at times than safe.
Because that's what you do find as well, is where people try to self-medicate as well, and I've got a headache, and obviously if people overdose and all these things as well. Pharmaceutical industry is the largest, or to my knowledge, the largest industry for making money globally. Yet people don't seem to use it in the way they should, because I think people are scared of hospitals and scared of doctors and everything, and it is...
Yeah, they are very closed worlds. But you guys from in the film industry, like, you don't make a movie without making a plan.
Exactly,
And that's Lifebox was founded by this surgeon, Atul Gawande. He's an author. He writes for the New Yorker. He's extraordinarily. He tells very eloquent stories about surgery, and I think that's kind of a missing link because it can be seen as this very closed world.
Yeah.
But actually, I think increasingly important, as Lauren said, as more and more people are living longer, are requiring surgeries. More people die now from conditions that are treatable by surgery than they do from communicable diseases. So I think more people dying from surgically treatable conditions than from HIV, TB, and malaria combined. So this is a global crisis with a lot of syllables. It's not as catchy as it might be, but it is a profound. It's going to be a profound part of how we save ourselves in the coming.
Could you imagine being on set and not having a call sheet? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just wouldn't happen. I mean, people are, assistant directors are religious about their call sheets, so people know who's in what department and who the department heads are, right? And could you imagine just showing up to work and not even having that piece of paper, not knowing who's your grip today, who's your electrician today, and that can happen if there's not the kind of let's everyone come together, find out who's doing what job, And
that's the thing, and whether or not, again, obviously, saving a life in surgery is kind of more important than making a film, but again, being relative in a comparison.
Surgery.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, is there a plan for? I know you've made the film, as it's, but marketing.
Yeah.
How are you looking to go about that? Is it obviously going to be reaching out to schools, or what's the demographic that you're looking to reach that you've identified as being most important that needs to be educated on this?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's. I mean, I guess everyone needs to be educated that
on
was
it.
always
That's the
our-
easy answer. That is you want everyone to obviously see about it. But if you had to pick for the first, if it was a case of you've got one demographic.
It would be ministries of health in my mind, like, policymakers, the people in charge, because in so many of these places they were just so frustrated at not having, either the support for it, In Guatemala they weren't even given paper to make a checklist. you know, like, so just...
Well, that's the like the first place, isn't it? It's like, right,
Well, you can put it up on a wall. Some places
Yeah.
put it up on a wall. So,
Right.
but still, I mean, if your clinicians are asking for something to make the health better, and it's paper, you know, like,
Yeah.
and there's a reason for it, it should happen, you know. And so, like, policymakers, governments, that would be the first place I'd want people, you know, for this to be distributed and marketed. We have a screening pack that Sarah put together. And so anyone can do a private license if they want to for now. And then, you know, being at festivals like this is an awesome opportunity for, you know.
I think we want it in schools, we want it in medical schools particularly. If you're thinking about clinicians of the future, we don't want to change minds once they're already made up. We want to be working with...
kind of give a bit of wisdom, well not wisdom, it's a fundamental you want it to be like basically mandatory.
I think we've made the best film about global surgery that has ever been.
She's not biased.
I said I think.
But basically, that translated is I know.
Well, you know, we've worked at Lifebox a long time, and you know,
You're passionate.
We're passionate, but I think, you know, I think it's worth saying that Lauren and the crew that made the film, like, they worked pro bono on a huge amount of this. You know, there was an incredible amount of generosity that went into making this film, and it was, you know, as incredible as it was to get the chance to go to Mongolia. It wasn't for the air miles. It was because, like, they could see that this was a story that I think hadn't been told and needed to be told. And the same goes for the, you know, the partners that Lifebox works with, that, you know, that support our organisation. I think there's a real growing recognition of this is a story that needs to be told, and so I think it will live, you know, in healthcare, in human rights festivals, and the kind of, it's a film with a message, but it's not preaching, you know, and I think that's what we set out to do.
Get, isn't it? You get obviously different, because that's what we enjoy with our festivals. We welcome in educational films and all different types, and all films look to have a message, and some are chucked down your throat, or others are a bit more subtle, but yeah, the subject matter that yours covers, everyone needs to see it and appreciate it. Was there anything, again, obviously as I mentioned, that you wanted to do to camera to give you the opportunity to promote it? Because that'd be great, like as a going forward, have a digital promo video for you. You're more than welcome to do so to camera if you wanted to.
Okay. I think it's kind of nice to do it as a conversation,
that's absolutely fine.
But we could say, like, you know, people should definitely be following the Checklist Effect on Twitter. So either hashtag the Checklist Effect or at Checklist Effect.
At Checklist Effect on Twitter.
They should also be following.
Yep, I'm Lauren Anders Brown. You can find me at LAB Collaborate on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Sarah Kessler. So you should definitely be following Lifebox Foundation, which is an NGO which has made surgery and anesthesia safer for an estimated 10 million patients around the world in the last 6 years, and ambition to push much further with support that we hope this film will help to bring about. So at Safer Surgery on Twitter.
And definitely share anything you can about the project, anything coming up, and if you really want a screening and there's not one already by you, just reach out to us and we'd be happy to organize one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck for tomorrow night as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We've got to the point where surgery is now, within the wider hospital system, a much more complex and potentially dangerous environment to be working in.
Nobody who gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to harm a patient today. But you know that always the outcomes are not favorable, and you know that you could have done better. You know that you are running against time, against resources, and there are places where there is a fair degree of neglect.
This patient was anesthetized, and we found that the wrong side, the wrong upside, had been prepared.
I think the main problem is that even though we've got all this technology and everything, is that inherently we're human and we make errors.
We did the operation exactly in this care because there is no power, no electricity, use the light fans and also make a fire. Patient was bled.
But if you're not vigilant, she passes on. no matter the reason. Maybe it's my anesthetic, maybe I wasn't able to monitor the patient. But usually the big question is, what do I tell the husband or the children?
The worst case scenario is always death. That's the reality of surgery and anaesthesia. The worst case scenario is that you have a fundamentally enormous problem.
A mí me dio mucha preocupación porque era una paciente que verdaderamente no tenía que morirse.
We need to go back to basics. There are just a few key practices that can make a difference for infection reduction. And that may be the biggest value in saving lives, is by paring down and focusing not on saying we're going to solve all of it, but let's bring the basic accomplishments of the 19th century, safe anesthesia, and then infection reduction to our patients around the world. But how can we do it?